All right, cool. So I do want to start out by saying thank you so much for uh being a part of this. I love your participation, love the questions. I miss you guys. I really do. Some of you, like, I don't see that often anyway, but just being away from Vegas, I feel like that was my home base for a really long time. And I miss you guys, but I am loving life. Like, I am up here closer to nature. I'm learning a lot being here on, I call it the farm, even though it's not really a farm, but we do have chickens and a garden, and I'm learning a lot with all that. Looking forward to getting a house at some point. We're constantly looking, and that's an ongoing process. But our main requirement is it's got to be a place that we can raise chickens. So, what else? Yeah, I do want to say thank you for being a part of this, being a part of this movement, for helping me get to my initial goal of 360 members. Because once we hit 360 members, like, there's so many great things that we can do. I know that all of us are paying less than $1 a day for this community, and there's so much great information here, totally worth it. But at some point, I'm going to throw some more bones at you. Okay, so we've got some great things lined up. Wait, I don't know if that's the way that I meant to segue that. I was going to get someone to guess. What am I doing here? Throwing you a bone. So this is what we have coming up. Um, we've got our talk with Alan Williams from Understanding Agriculture. And this guy, he's been on all the big podcasts. He's such a great guy. I had an hour-long conversation with him. We had a hard time getting off the phone. All about regenerative agriculture. And if that sounds like something that's not even doesn't pertain to you, it's really, we're going to boil it down to what is it that we can do from a consumer level, and then also if we want to start our own gardens and start our own livestock to some degree, even if it's just getting some chickens or goats or something like that. It's going to be such a great talk. I'm so thankful that he's doing this with us and sharing his time with us. Another one that we have coming up, really excited about this too. This girl speaks at KetoCon, Low Carb Conference. She's going to San Diego to do a big talk there. So this is Michelle Hearn. She's an RD turned kind of animal based. She's a long distance athlete, and she's got so many great insights just being a female. She works with clients. She was in the RD community. So she has that medical perspective, and she's just really amazing. And I'm excited for that. We haven't put it on the calendar yet, but we will hear really soon. I'm just excited to have a female come in and give a female's perspective, especially from an RD perspective. And then we have the someone that works hand in hand with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. His name's Brian Stepanenko, and he's a functional medicine doctor. He's in the military, so he's a medical physician in the military. And he's also a functional medicine doctor, making some really great waves in the medical community in the military. He's doing a talk with us, again, not on the calendar yet, but it is going to be probably late September, maybe October. Had a great chat with him, got so many great insights that we're going to share. And then I'm so excited because Gabrielle Lyon is going to come and do an exclusive talk for all of us. Some of the people that I've gotten this information from today, Dr. Robert Wolf, PhD, and then Dr. Lehman, have both agreed to, and we're having a hard time finding some times that work for them because they're so freaking busy, but I'm just really, really thankful. So this is exclusive to us. Now, we do record this. We make it available for members in the future that can't attend these meetings. But my goal is to bring tremendous value to what it is that you're paying here. And I feel like we do that already right now. A lot of it is me putting out this info. I'm excited to bring in other experts. When we hit that first 360 mark, which there's no reason we can't have thousands of people in here, then we can pay. I've got a yoga instructor lined up, a really top-notch professional yoga instructor. I've got a stretching coach. I've got a breath coach. Like, we've got so many things in the works. It's in my envisioning. I've already reached out to them and told them this is what we want to do at some point. I've got the prices for them. So that's the kind of value that we can bring to this place. And I just want to say thank you for supporting me and supporting this and supporting each other. Okay. So again, if you have questions as we go through this, take a note, put it in the chat so they can remember to circle back to it. Today, we're talking about optimizing protein. Basically, what we're going to talk about today is what is protein, what are amino acids. We're going to talk about this concept around protein synthesis and muscle protein synthesis. And then we're going to get into how much to consume, the timing of it, how we blend that with fasting, which has been really challenging for a lot of us. But I think I got some really, really good pro tips to help you figure this whole thing out, okay? So, what is protein? Most of us probably know this. I like this definition, thinking of it as biomolecules. Proteins are chains of amino acids. The amino acids make up the foundation of what proteins are. And in this little diagram here, you see that amino acids are the smallest component of proteins. They start to form what is known as the secondary structure called a helix. And then those amino acids form into polypeptide chains. And then those polypeptide chains form together to form these proteins, right? There's like just almost an infinite number of proteins that can be assembled with these different amino acids. So then if we think about what amino acids are, so there's actually, I think, over 500 amino acids in nature. But there's 20, some people debate 21, 22 amino acids that are necessary for human health. And this is what our bodies are made of, and this is what we use for all the different functions in the body. And then you'll see here we have what is known as the essential amino acids, and those are the ones that have that little hash tag line around the circle. And there's 9 essential amino acids, and we'll talk a little bit more about essential amino acids and how those are so beneficial and why they're so important. And just a sneak peek at that, we'll circle back to it. One of the most important amino acids is this amino acid leucine. And if we get leucine at a certain threshold, then we start to activate this process of protein synthesis and muscle protein synthesis or muscle building, which is important for all of us, by the way. I'm going to make an argument for that too. And so when we're eating the way that we recommend today and supplementing the way we recommend today, we're getting that amount. Now, we don't need just the leucine. Leucine is like turning on a car, and it's like the lights and the power come on. But in order for the engine to run, we need the rest of the amino acids. So we consume food and various types of food, and from that food, we get essential amino acids. These essential amino acids have to be gotten through food because we cannot make them internally. And then we have the non-essential amino acids, which are things that we can form and break down certain things that we have inside our body and create them if we need to, but that doesn't mean that it's not useful to consume them as well. And when we're eating real food, like, we're getting all the amino acids regardless. Now, within the essential amino acids, we have what is known as the branched chain amino acids. And these have gotten a lot of popularity, and we'll come back to that a little bit later too. Okay, so again, amino acids, the building blocks of protein. Protein serves a lot of different functions and roles. By the way, we have a book coming out, hopefully by January. I've got a really great ghostwriter helping me put it all together, and it's always being updated. This is, the latest roles of meats and proteins and amino acids from a guide, which I think is a little bit limited. And I want to expand on that just a little bit. So we're here talking about protein today, and let's just acknowledge how powerful it is. Okay, so we always say that when we eat real food, the purpose of food is two-part: to give the body nutrients and nourishment, and then also to create energy in a specific way. Now, these nutrients contribute to the structure of the body. Now, when we talk about structure, yes, we're talking about muscle, we're talking about tissue, organs, brain, skin, ligaments, tendons, bones, nails. A lot of us think that our bones and these connective tissues and things are kind of mineral based, but they're dominantly protein, even our bones. And we find that when we consume adequate amounts of protein, that facilitates great bone structure. From a functional perspective, we've got metabolism. So one thing to keep in mind is that the more muscle you have, the more of a glucose disposal organ you have, because it is the largest site of glucose disposal that we have. So the more muscle you have, the better you're going to be doing with your metabolism. Enzymes. So proteins are enzymes. Enzymes are made of proteins. Enzymes are proteins. All right. So and enzymes are the catalyst for all the different reactions that happen inside cells and outside cells. Proteins are neurotransmitters, and that means that they equate to your cellular communication, system communication, organ communication, and they also contribute to your thinking and your mood and your sleep. Proteins are also a lot of receptors. So inside cells, we have these receptors that are looking for different hormones traveling throughout the bloodstream and an interstitial fluid. And so a lot of those receptors are protein-based. And then also protein contributes to cell motility. Now, we can think about cellular movements, but we can also think bigger picture with muscles. So protein, it's got to be the most important macronutrient. It really does. And when we say protein, obviously, when you're eating protein, you're eating it coming from a source that's combined with a bunch of the other macronutrients that we need. Okay. So pro tip, this is just one of them. We got a lot of them today. The more muscle you have, the better you live. I knew it all along. So I've been so obsessed with it. Really, the reason I've been obsessed with it is because I was made fun of for being so skinny in high school. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to go get so big. I'm just going to come back and do something to everybody. That's not my mentality now. I'm a very caring, compassionate person now. All right. So when we have strength and when we have muscle, we can do things. You can move things. You can be active. You can participate in activities with people and family and friends, right? We don't want to be limited by our lack of capacity. Like we mentioned before, largest disposal for glucose. That means that it is a big source of our healthy metabolism. And it's also a reservoir for nutrients when we need it. Okay, so if we go through periods of illness and surgery and injury, if we don't have the ability, if we don't have the appetite, if we don't have things coming in, then our muscle becomes this place that the body can actually pull things from. Now, ideally, we don't want that over the long term, but it's great to have that huge resource there as a just in case emergency. And that's what the body actually has to do. I love this idea and concept. So, and I've heard this from several people. I remember listening to Dr. Don Layman. I think I'll bring him up here in a little bit. Most of modern medicine is focused on disease states, and therefore they focus on the organs of disease. So we focus a lot on fat and reducing our fat, losing fat. And we focus, if you have diabetes, you're focusing on the pancreas. And if you have heart issues, you're focusing on the heart. And maybe another perspective could be, pro tip, instead of focusing on the diseased organ and state, try focusing on the solution, which is almost the opposite of what that is. So a lot of times, we talk with our envisioning, mindfulness type stuff, we talk about focusing on what you want versus what you don't want. So maybe something useful to focus on would be the solution to a lot of these disease states, which is strength and muscle. So a really important, we got some beautiful hummingbirds here. Sorry, just quick tangent. So we got hummingbird feeders, and there's this one guy that defends a feeder, and all the other, it's like Star Wars. These little hummingbirds come in and they try to get close, and then he chases them off and he flares his wings out, and it's so beautiful, but that's his, defense stance or whatever. But yeah, sometimes they'll just buzz. I think they're really comfortable with me now. They just hang out around my head. So a really important concept to understand here is muscle protein turnover. This is the replacement of older proteins as they are broken down within the cell. Different types of proteins have a different turnover rate. So what's crucial is we have this balance between protein synthesis and protein degradation that facilitates really good health. If we have more synthesis than we have degradation, that's an anabolic state and we build muscle. And if we have more breakdown than we do synthesis, that is a catabolic state, and that's where we're breaking down tissue. So I think it's optimal to have either a good balance or you're constantly improving or increasing your synthesis. So this is a great little chart from, and I'm going to tab over and just show you guys because I'm going to put this in the resources. This was a really, really interesting video. I loved it. Where are we at? YouTube. Scientific webinar. So I'm subscribed to all kinds of different things. This was a really, really good talk, right? Stimulating skeletal muscle protein synthesis, and they did this comparison of all kinds of different foods and powders, and it was so interesting. So come back to where I was. So this is really good information. When you're at rest, you're breaking yourself down. When we came through our fasting protocols, I'm going to touch on fasting a little bit later. But when we went through our fasting protocols, a lot of us were just like these master fasters. We fasted all the time. I did one meal a day for probably 2 or 3 years straight. And we did our phases of once a month, doing like a 3 to 7 day fast. And not that there's anything wrong with that. But the idea behind that is when you listen to people like Dr. Fung, who wrote the Complete Guide to Fasting, and others, is that when you're fasting, your body goes into this protein sparing mode. And maybe it does to some degree, but the reality is that you are always breaking down protein. You are always, even at rest, you're breaking down protein. And then the question is, are you rebuilding it? Are you giving your body what it needs to rebuild? So at rest, we typically have more breakdown than we do synthesis. What's great about amino acids is when you consume amino acids, whether it's protein-based or in supplement form, then you start to improve and increase your muscle synthesis. Exercise by itself without even eating anything, as you can see here, that third little chart there, or third little 2 bars, exercise in and of itself stimulates protein synthesis. And which makes sense because when we exercise and lift weights, especially resistance training, you're giving a body a signal of it needs to adapt to be able to do what it is that the stress that you're putting on the body. Now, if you do exercise plus the proper nutrition, then your protein synthesis, muscle protein synthesis skyrockets. Okay. So I think a big takeaway from this is that we're always being broken down. And so we want to make sure that we're supplying the body with adequate amounts of whatever it is that we need to overcome that. So pro tip, the more protein turnover, the better, because you're getting rid of more damaged proteins and you're creating more new proteins. So I'm not sure if that makes sense just yet, but you're always in a state of protein turnover. The more that you can have this protein turnover, the better. It's almost like the more that you're renewing yourself. So what we see, well, first of all, there's two things that are going to contribute to it, as we just saw in those charts: eating food, which mainly means eating protein, and then also resistance training. I love the way Gabrielle Lyon puts it, because she worked in geriatrics for a really long time. She saw people on their deathbed, old age, and she was like, I saw these people wasting away. And aging, when you think about it, it's kind of like a disease of wasting away. It's a disease of losing capacity and losing muscle. So as you get older, if you're not exercising, right, then you have more protein degradation. You also have more damaged proteins that you're not cycling out of the system. But if, as we age, we also throw in the mix resistance training and good physical training, and we have the right amount of protein in, then we minimize those damaged proteins that aren't just hanging around inside the body. So the more protein turnover you have, actually, the better, right? And pro tip, if you are strong, you're going to live better, period. You're going to be more functional, like just all the reasons that we talked about before. Strength is extremely beneficial. So inside our community, we have a course I'm really proud of. It's called Fitness Foundations. And in the Fitness Foundations, we have it broken down by video, little segments. And in the Fitness Foundations pyramid that we talk about, the base of it is constant movement throughout the day. And then the second part of it is training every body part 1 or 2 times a week with some kind of resistance training. Okay. So if you need further information or clarification on that, there's a downloadable PDF guide in there, and it's really, really awesome. Now we got chickens coming up here. They all love me because I feed them every day. We have an updated Fitness Foundations manual, which I think is really, really solid. So if you need more guidance or help, this is very useful. And then you can also just reach out to me if you want to. I'm always putting together little custom workouts for my clients and stuff. All right. So that was making an argument for protein. Okay. And I hope that we did that. I feel like we did. I feel like, to me, that was just really exciting to continue to learn that info about how important it is. Now let's talk about protein requirements. What does the USDA say? The recommended daily allowance, as it stands right now, is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body mass, or 0.36 grams per pound, right? So now if you wanted to figure out what your protein requirement was based on the RDA, you could say your weight times 0.36. Right? That's the grams of protein you need to consume in a day. This equates to, for someone who's 200 pounds, which is about how big I am, 72 grams of protein in a day. I don't know. Pro tip, don't listen to the USDA. I don't know that there's anything that I would listen to USDA about. All right. Now, if we go to World Health Organization, another one of our favorite organizations, they have what is known as the health diet, or the healthy diet. Let me just have a show you guys something real quick. Dun, 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 dun. Where's it at? This is the healthy diet. I'll share this with you guys too. We're not going to read all this, very small print. Bottom line is, there is no mention of protein at all. There's fat, there's carbohydrates, there's calories. There is no mention of protein in anything in here, or any of the resources. I would consider protein to be the most important macronutrient that there is. And that just blows my mind, right? This is the mainstream advice, the mainstream narrative that most people are getting information from, okay? So that's RDA, USDA, that's WHO, which has no recommendations. Maybe they do somewhere else. I don't know. So pro tip, don't listen to the WHO on most things. So real quick, this is signs of protein deficiency. And what's really interesting is a lot of these correlate with what would seem like blood sugar dysregulation, prediabetes, hypoglycemia. And as we mentioned before, muscle is one of the biggest disposal sites for glucose, and it contributes a huge part to our healthy metabolism. So now this makes sense. And what I've noticed is, when I get my clients consuming more protein or getting closer to their daily ideal protein intake or supplementing with whey or essential amino acids, then a lot of these symptoms start to go away. And we haven't really even tinkered with the whole metabolic flexibility piece of it just yet. So, again, this helps us make an argument for consuming adequate amounts of protein. And it comes back to what we've always said about the purpose of real food, which is we're eating food for nutrients and we're eating food for good metabolic flexibility. Okay. And I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this hypothesis, the protein leverage hypothesis. There's a book that was written on it. It's really, really great. And the idea here is that all animals, including humans or especially humans, are unconsciously seeking out a certain level of protein as they are foraging or trying to eat in general. And when they hit that certain level of protein, the appetite changes because the body's received what it needs. And again, when we say protein is rarely consumed in isolation. Usually when you consume protein, you're eating meat, and meat has a lot of other things, or eggs, or, even with Chandler, we're eating the vegetables that have high protein content. We're getting a lot of other beneficial things with it. But the bottom line here is that, and a lot of people support this, and I feel it and notice it experientially. I do with my clients. When you hit a certain amount of protein in a day, your appetite signals shut off. Things change. I'm not saying they completely go away, but something shifts and changes. So, where I've compiled this information from, among many other places, is Mark Sisson from Mark's Daily Apple and the Primal Blueprint, and Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who's a huge advocate for protein, Dr. Donna Lehman, which is I think one of her mentors, but I've also just learned a lot just from him exclusively. Dr. Robert Wolf, PhD. This guy, I think, is the grandfather of this kind of information. His guide, A Guide to Amino Acid and Protein Nutrition, is freaking amazing. Slightly difficult read, but it's really, really great info. This guy has ran 62 marathons in under 2.5 hours. That's crazy. And of course, he maybe a big part of it, he would say a big part of that is because of protein intake and supplementing with amino acids and things. So to summarize here, I thought this was a really nifty chart that I put together. Let me see if I can break this down for us. Remember, we talked about leucine being one of the essential amino acids. And when you consume a certain amount of leucine, then there's like this signal to the body for muscle protein synthesis. And it's estimated to be about 2 to 2.5 grams at a sitting or at a consumption time. All right. So that is important, but we need leucine in balance with the other amino acids. I don't know that that's necessarily super important to remember, but I'm trying to tie all this together. We'll simplify it. Okay, I promise. So daily protein, what's ideal, learning from these people and just from experimenting and working with clients, is what's ideal is 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So if your ideal body weight is 150 pounds, then ideally you're shooting for 150 grams of protein in a day. Now, keep in mind, as we've said many times before, 150 grams of protein is not 150 grams of meat, because meat is made up of a lot of other stuff. Usually that's going to equate to about a pound of meat gives you about 100 grams of protein or something like that, right? So, or a quarter pound gives you about 25 grams of protein, which is interesting how the numbers work out. It's very convenient there. Daily protein minimum, I would say, would be 100 grams. 100 grams would be something great for every human being to shoot for. I don't know. I don't care how big or how small or what gender. 100 grams of protein is a really good starting place. Now, if you end up wanting to track your macros using something like Chronometer, that has been really beneficial. With most of my clients, I don't advocate tracking and weighing and measuring long-term, but as we try to figure out how to make our meals and how big they should be and how much of our different macros, it's super, super useful. So maybe spot check yourself and measure what you're doing in a day or a few days or a week. And it should be very eye-opening. Most people are under consuming protein big time. So again, ideally, 1 gram per pound of body weight, minimum 100 grams in a day. And when you're eating a meal, we're looking for a minimum of about 30 grams of protein, okay? Because that is going to give you the 2 to 2.5 grams of leucine that you need to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Now, every single one of the people that I've learned from also advocate in eating meals with these boluses of protein versus snacking throughout the day to get your protein. Our ancestors weren't walking around with fanny packs of snacks, right? So they would eat a significant amount of food, whatever they had, and then they would move on, right? So there's something about the body responding to these boluses, and that's why we have to hit these amounts, the 30 grams plus. And that stimulates muscle protein synthesis. It's something that our body it just responds really well to. Now, if you're going to use essential amino acids, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, you're looking for 5 to 10 grams of pure essential amino acids, because let's say if I'm looking at protein in the human body, half of any of the protein is essential amino acids. So it's almost like you could consume half of the 30 grams in just pure essential amino acids. I'd say probably 10 grams to 15 grams. Actually, that is the number that I meant to have there is 10 to 15 grams. Would give you the same muscle protein synthesis signal without consuming all the food. And you still want to consume food, but I'm going to tie in, a strategy that you might want to experiment with. So I hope that's not too confusing. If it's confusing, throw something in the chat. So this background info, let's just talk about how we get there, and then we'll simplify things, right? Let's talk about real food versus isolated nutrients. Some really good studies were done trying to mimic the nutrient content of salmon. So they balanced out, they got the exact same amount of protein, the exact same amount of amino acid ratios, they got the exact same amount of fat, the same types of fat. They just created it with isolated nutrients. And what they found was, so this microfilarial protein FSR is one of the most accurate ways to measure muscle protein synthesis. But what we can see from this chart here is, number one, muscle protein synthesis does start to happen when you're fasted. Although if we saw the breakdown, it would be higher than the synthesis. But we're just looking at synthesis now. So when you eat real salmon versus the nutrients that are contained in salmon, you have a much better response as far as muscle protein synthesis goes. So this is making an argument for making the majority of what you consume to be real food versus isolated nutrients or powders. This is another great one. Same thing, fasted, we're going to have a little bit of muscle protein synthesis. When we do egg whites versus eggs, whole eggs, there's something about the synergy of the whole egg that contributes to a significant more muscle protein synthesis. So again, an argument for real food. Now, if we look at this little chart here, and this is pulled from that video that I showed you earlier, which I'll share with you if you want to watch it. Let's look at the bottom left little chart there. So we've got protein content percentage. And on the left, we've got the plant-based proteins. Those are all isolates. So they are very concentrated protein from those different plants. And then when we get into the whey, this is liquid whey that we get from, like when you take out a spoonful of yogurt, the liquid that's left over, that's liquid whey. We've got milk, we got casein, egg, and human muscle. Okay, so those are not isolates. So we've had to compensate with the plant-based proteins to some degree to get that higher level of protein. But when we do that, then we see here as a percentage of protein content, we have a really high percentage, okay? Now, if we look at the top right, we've got essential amino acids as a percentage of total protein. And whey is just a really strong powerhouse. It always has been. And we're still here, we're talking about whey. We're not talking about whey isolate or anything like that, which is even going to be more concentrated. And I highlighted pea protein here because I know Chandler uses pea protein isolate. Arnica does too because she doesn't tolerate whey isolate. So we see pretty significant levels of essential amino acids there. And then at the bottom right, we've got percentage of leucine. Okay, so leucine is that powerhouse. We're looking for that 2.5 grams. Whey has a really big amount, and then pea protein, not too bad. So I don't know if that's useful or not, but food matrix, the argument here is that there's something that we can't figure out. There's something magical about eating real food because of all the different components contained in real food. And our body just responds different to real food than it does isolated nutrients. That doesn't mean that there isn't a place for protein powders and supplementation, but it is, we do need to advocate the power of eating real food. So pro tip, the food matrix is far more beneficial than isolated nutrients. Now, I think that we can have a combination, a balance of those things and get the best of all worlds. Questions, comments, feedback, throw it in the chat so we can address it later. And pro tip, it is better to eat 30 grams of protein per meal versus snacking and spreading out because we need the bolus. We need to get that 30 grams to get the signal for muscle protein synthesis. All right, so let's talk a little bit about protein powders, talk about some other supplements, and then we'll get back down to what it is that we need to do. Unfortunately, Chandler, I could not find any studies on pea isolate by itself. So most of the rigorous studies have been done with whey and casein and soy, because soy is one of the more popular plant-based ones out there. But what we see here is when you consume whey on the far left here, It's hard to tell, but the top line there, we get a really, really good spike in leucine in the bloodstream, in our tissues, and then that kind of tapers off as time goes on. We have a moderate spike with soy and a very low spike with casein. And then if we look at the right side, this is a measure of muscle protein synthesis with whey, a very strong spike with casein, a little bit, soy, a little bit. I don't know, take that for what it's worth. I think what I'm trying to say here is whey is a powerhouse from a protein powder standpoint. Soy, casein, not so much. Pea protein, I would estimate to be somewhere in between whey and soy here. So this is, most of us are, a lot of us are taking some whey isolate, whether it's through Biotics or, we've put out some other brands here lately. If you get a 20-gram serving of protein from any of those whey isolates, then you're getting 2 grams of leucine. I think in the literature and some of these experts are saying from 2 to 2.5 grams of leucine is what we're looking for. So what I've been doing, instead of just 20 grams of protein, for Biotics, it's 2 scoops. I would do 3 scoops or 2.5 or something like that, right? And if I'm doing the Clean Simple Eats protein, 1 scoop is 20 grams of protein. I would do 1.5 scoops. All right, it's just to make sure that I'm hitting that 2.5 grams of leucine. All right, so pro tip, whey isolate, if you're going to do a protein powder, is the king of protein powders. Now, if you have a sensitivity or an issue, like I said, Arnica does. We have some people that kind of lean a little bit more plant-based, and I think the pea protein isolate is going to be the best of those worlds because soy has other problems that we're trying to avoid. All right, so pro tip, consume whey in amounts that give you 20 to 30 grams of protein, or you can use it to supplement meals. So if you're going to do whey isolate as a standalone, like a morning protein shake or something along those lines, then you'd be looking for that 20 to 30 grams of protein so you can get that decent pop of leucine. But a lot of us, including myself, I'll add like a small scoop or, maybe what would be considered 10 grams of protein from the whey isolate to a meal, just to make sure I'm getting a really good pop of protein at that meal. Just as a reminder, shop.superhumantransformation.com. We've got the Biotics whey isolate, which everyone that tolerates whey isolate tolerates this really well. Okay, now some people just don't do good with any kind of whey, no matter what. But most people, the feedback, like this is probably one of the cleanest proteins that there are out there. Most people feel really good on it. And again, if you use SHU5, you get 5% off, free shipping over 100. One of the reasons that Biotics is tolerated so well is because it is micro filtered versus micro cold filtered versus some of the other whey isolates are just micro filtered or just cold filtered. Kion is another one. Now, I was hesitant to ever even look into Kion because I don't know. Ben Greenfield is one of the guys that sponsored it, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just, I just like many of you, I have the skeptic mind, and I'm just like, okay, is this really a good product or not? But I had a lot of clients that have just stumbled across it and they felt really good on it. So Kion's whey isolate is actually micro cold filtered as well. And I have some people here with us today that have tried it and don't do good on other whey isolates, but do totally fine on Kion's. Kion micro cold filtered and tolerated really, really well and a little bit more cost effective. Okay. And I can't remember how much cost effective, but it is pretty significant. All right. And I just want you guys to get the best of what you need. Like I do appreciate people buying supplements through me. I would never promote or recommend anything that I don't take myself. And at the same time, I want to try to get you guys deals everywhere that I can. So if you use code Superhumans United with Kion, you get 10% off all purchases. This is an indefinite discount code. Or if you do a subscription with them, normal subscription is 10% off. And if you use our code, you get 20% off a subscription. So if you know that you like one of their products and you end up adding a subscription, you can get an even more substantial discount. Okay. Now, another protein, whey isolate that we've recommended is the Clean Simple Eats. It's got other ingredients in it, some of the things that we're okay with, but some people may be sensitive to. But I'm telling you what, their flavors are amazing. I love them. Kathy, thank you so much. Oh, I'll send you some money today, Kathy. That fudge brownie one you sent me is really, really good. But I would recommend if you try the Clean Simple Eats, get their variety pack, see if you like it. And if you tolerate it well, and if you do, then that's another really, really good option. Now, the price point for Clean Simple Eats and Kion is identical with our discount. Clean Simple Eats, use code SHT for life. I will make sure to have all this compiled in our notes. And you get 10% off purchases as well. So the price point for both of those is identical. The only difference between the two is that Clean Simple Eats gives you more variety of flavors. Kion's going to be a little bit more clean, and I think Biotics is the Mac Daddy of the clean. Okay, so I'm probably always going to do a combination of Biotics mixed with Clean Simple Eats or something like that. All right, so if you want to do some whey protein isolate, you have some options there, and we try to get you some discounts. If you find it cheaper somewhere else, or you find something else that you like, then go for it. Okay. All right, we're almost there. Essential amino acids, game changer. All right. Now, we talked about before, what are the essential amino acids? We have our non-essential that we can make inside of ourselves. We have the conditionally essential, and then we have the essential, which are things we have to get from the diet. Right. Out of the 20 amino acids, 9 are classified as essential. These essential amino acids cannot be synthesized. Your body must attain them through the diet from protein-rich foods. Essential amino acids make up over 50% of every protein in your body. So one takeaway from that is when you supplement with essential amino acids in pure form, already broken down, you only have to consume half as much as you would a normal amount of protein to get the same muscle protein synthesis response. And I'm going to tie that back to what it is that we need to know here. All right, so pro tip, supplementing with essential amino acids in the right proportions is a powerful way to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. The benefits of supplementing with essential amino acids is they require little to zero digestive effort because they are already broken down. They are already at their smallest component. They stimulate muscle protein synthesis as much as real food, except you have to do half the amount, right? So you don't have to have so much. And they do not break a fast. And that's what's great too. Now they do stimulate mTOR because mTOR is the thing that actually helps us build muscle. So if that's your thing and you're trying to fast for the rest of your life, we'll talk about fasting here in a second, then that would be something to consider. But so again, leucine is the amino acid that turns things on, but we need the rest of the amino acids to actually get everything going to actually build the muscle. All right, so Kion has the only essential amino acid product that I found that I like is Kion. Now, Dr. Robert Wolf has a line called Amino Pro, and his formulations are awesome. Like he's got like just a pure essential amino acids, and you'll see here the blend that Kion put together acknowledges what we're talking about with the ratios of leucine being like 40% of the overall blend. But the problem with Dr. Wolf's is, first of all, his are blended perfectly as well. And he has some that are like have a little bit of whey combined with it. So they're good for post-workout recovery. But they have things like sucralose and some artificial sweeteners, which I'm just not a fan of. But I can share that with you if you guys want to check it out. But I do love Kion. I think Kion is freaking super clean, and the intention behind it is really pure. So pro tip again, for Kion, you can use Superhumans United and get the 10% off or 20% off of subscriptions if you want to try the Kion aminos. All right. So if we were to experiment with the essential amino acids, the experts, Gabrielle Lyon, Don Layman, Robert Wolf, some others would recommend 5 grams of essential amino acids pre-workout, 5 grams post-workout, 10 to 15 grams if you're doing it sometime in between meals, because that will give you the amount of leucine necessary for muscle protein synthesis. And if you're having trouble sleeping, 5 grams before bed, because those essential amino acids contribute to the formation of the things that we need to sleep. Okay. Now, what I recommend, because we do want to have this balance of fasting and metabolic flexibility, and then also the building and maintaining of muscle. Leucine can be used for energy. So I don't use the essential amino acids pre-workout. I will use essential amino acids post-workout. And I've been experimenting with doing just a scoop or 1 serving of the 5 grams post-workout, because there's I meant to pull some graphs in here from Dr. Robert Wolf's work, but he showed this significant reduction in the breakdown of muscle if you supplement right after workout. And then also this spike in muscle protein synthesis, because you already get one from exercise. And then if you have a little bit of the essential amino acids with it, it's like a little bit synergistic. So I don't do pre-workout simply because I want my body to be metabolically flexible before going into a workout, but I do either 5 grams, 1 serving of essential amino acids post-workout, or I've been experimenting with 30 grams of protein of whey, and then 10 to 15 grams of essential amino acids in between meals. All right, because if we think about it like this, right, let's just say that you're working out in the morning. You got to work out. You have a little bit of support there if you want it, or you can fast post-workout. I think is really beneficial too. I'm just experimenting to see what's best. And then I'm not going to eat until usually 1, 2 o'clock, and I have a compressed eating window. So then I'm eating dinner. So I will take 10 to 15 grams, which is 2 to 3 scoops of the Kion Essential Aminos at that about halfway in between my morning and my first meal. Okay. So that's usually for me about 10:30. And that's also when I take my organ supplements and things like that. So, and I feel like this has been cost effective for me. Initially, I was doing essential amino acids all day and it got to be really expensive. So, and if we need clarification around that, then just let me know. Now, what about branched chain amino acids? I took those years ago back in my bodybuilding days. They were all the hype. You know, you go to bodybuilding.com and you see just all kinds of articles on the benefits of the branched chain amino acids. But remember, the branched chain amino acids are only 3 of the 9 essential amino acids. And one of the branched chain amino acids is leucine. So I think what happened with branched chain amino acids is that some people acknowledge the importance of leucine, and they also acknowledge the fact that it could be used for energy, and so supplementing it around workouts maybe made people feel a little bit better. But what we have found is that they actually do the opposite, unfortunately. There are 0 human studies in which BCAAs alone were responsible for more efficient protein synthesis or improved athletic performance. Multiple studies have found that BCAAs actually decrease muscle protein synthesis instead increase the catabolic rate of lean tissue. Now, why is that? Because if you take these branched chain amino acids and you get the leucine, okay, and I think I have that little car engine light. If you get the leucine, it's like you're turning the car lights on, right? You turn the power on, it's like, boom, we're lit up. But then you need the rest of the essential amino acids to actually build muscle. And if you don't have those, what happens is your body ends up pulling it from your own muscle to complete the process. So it's actually catabolic. It can also deplete B vitamins if it's not in balance with the other essential amino acids. So in isolation can cause insulin resistance and interfere with some blood sugar handling because of the energy that we get from leucine if we don't have the balance of the other amino acids. So if you're going to supplement with amino acids, it's much better to do essential amino acids than branched chain, right? So again, branched chains, they can kind of light things up. You start the race, but you need essential amino acids to finish the race. Like we said before, you can turn it on, but to get the engine actually going, you need the whole suite of the amino acids. Or you can think about like a foreman showing up to a work site. He's ready to go. That's leucine. Maybe the branched chain amino acids, but it's like, where are the other guys at? All right. So we can't do the work that we need to do without those other essential amino acids. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not. I thought it was. All right. And then just to summarize some of the benefits, results of essential amino acids and therefore proteins. Okay. Muscle maintenance. All right. I'm not going to read this word for word here. This is my notes that I put together. I should have reduced a little bit. Exercise recovery. So if you supplement after workouts, it can help with muscle protein synthesis. And then also, of course, as you're eating real food throughout the day and getting your protein amounts, that also helps. Appetite regulation is one of the things that I've noticed tremendously. Like I have so little craving now for carbohydrates and things. Not that there's anything wrong with those things. I just don't have that desire or need like I used to in the evening have a little something extra after I eat because of my protein sufficiency throughout the day. Improved cognitive function. We got improved sleep. Better metabolic health. And then for fasting, you know, if you have a lot of leucine isolated with BCAAs, it can mess up your fasting. But if you have it in balance with the other essential amino acids, it does not disrupt fasting for the benefits that we're looking for. Okay. Whew. Now, if we talk about fasting, this is our last thing. This is a personal preference and personal goal thing. Pro tip, when balancing eating and fasting, always connect with your personal vision for yourself and health. So I just want to say something here, and this is a thought that I've had for a while. And then I heard, who did I hear talking about it? I think it was on Rob Wolf's podcast. But so most of us here have gone through a lot of you have been with me for a long time, right? We've gone through our fasting phases. Okay, remember our fasting progressions, and it was the thing for a while, right? It was just fasting was the thing. And again, a lot of us have done the 1 meal a day for a really long time. A lot of us have got really good at the 3 days, 3-day fast once a month or once every couple of weeks and those kinds of things. And I think there's a place for that, right? I have clients that come into a real food way of eating, and I think definitely time restricted eating to 2 meals a day and having a lot of space is useful, and even 1 meal a day. But I don't think long term that's useful because it's almost impossible to get your protein amount in 1 meal. So then you have to ask yourself, what's more important to me? Is it more important for me to grow and to age and be strong and muscular and capable? Or is it more important for me to be committed to the fasting ideals and be a little bit more wimpy, I don't know, thin, frail, not capable or something like that? I think I prefer to be the bigger and stronger version. Okay. Now, the balance here is then the compromise is for me and my understanding of everything and just how I'm intuiting things. And again, everyone can do their own experiments. Is the 2 meals a day compressed eating window or just 2 meals a day in general? Making sure that you're hitting your ideal protein amount in the day, however you got to make that happen, right? Ideally main meals, maybe a little bit of whey supplementation, maybe a little essential amino acids. I think that's the perfect balance, right? I think below going to 1 meal a day for most people, you just can't get the nourishment that you need. It's not that there's not a place for it periodically here and there, but long term, I think what's most important for all of us, you look at aging people, okay? Uh, Most people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, they're not like super overweight anymore. Like they're wasting away, right? We want to be strong and capable as we age. That's my thoughts and feelings on it. And I'd love to hear yours, okay? So again, now let's just come back to tying it together, then we'll be done. And actually, that's great because we have about 10 minutes left. So daily protein, ideally a gram per pound of ideal body weight. All right. At a minimum, I think something that we can all shoot for is 100 grams of protein in a day from all your various sources. And when you sit down to eat, a minimum of 30 grams of a bolus, right? That means a third of a pound of steak, half a pound of steak, whatever your protein source is, you want to get enough to give you that 30 grams of protein pop. And then if you're going to do the essential amino acids, I meant to change that, not from 5, because 5 gives you right around 2 grams. I'm more of a fan of 10 grams to 15 grams of essential amino acids. So in these little notes here, if you're eating 2 meals per day, aim for 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal. I don't think that you can overdo that, okay? Because it's going to change your appetite for the rest of the day. This is about a third of a pound to a half a pound of meat. And you can also, what I like to do is actually Arnica's cooking me up some eggs in there right now. And I'll probably have like 4 eggs with a scoop of protein. So you may want to try 3 meals per day to hit your protein requirements. Now, I do have clients doing this, right? And they do a shake with 30 grams of protein in the morning. They fast till lunch. They have a midday meal with a protein emphasis. And then they fast until dinner and they have a protein meal, evening meal with a protein emphasis. And then I think if you can afford it, the essential amino acids by themselves are just really powerful. Like I just noticed immediately a difference in the way that I feel, like literally energy, clarity. And the way that I take those is 5 grams post workout. And then I do 10 to 15 grams. It's really 2 big scoops, which is almost 15 grams, but really 2 servings, a heaping 2 servings in between morning and midday. All right. So when you take essential amino acids that are pre-broken down outside of meals, then it's just like when you take organs, your body does something different with it. It prioritizes those things versus it being confounded with all the other food items. Okay. All right. So I think the big other things to consider, protein around injuries and surgeries, super, super crucial. Arnica's dad actually had knee replacement, and I'm just sitting here harping every day, like just consume protein as much as you can because that's what you need to rebuild yourself. Okay. So times of illness, times of surgeries, injuries, that would be really, really important time. So if we just brought it back to the most simple, cost-effective things, hit your 100 grams of protein in a day, do it with real food, right? If you want to supplement with whey, we got some options there. Hopefully we get some discounts. If you find something else you like, great. And then if you can afford it, I like supplementing with essential amino acids. I've noticed a difference. I've got people that have told me, holy moly, right away, it's been a game changer. So, and those are completely optional. I never want to seem like a supplement pusher, okay? Questions, comments, feedback, snide remarks. That is the talk. You guys are freaking awesome. Thank you so much for hanging in there. And now we are going to open it up to questions. So Kathy asks, if you only use 1 scoop of Kion and 1 scoop of Biotics, is that 30 grams? I think Kion's scoop is 20 grams of protein, and then Biotics is 10 grams of protein. So that would actually work out perfectly. But Kion, if you remember, is the bigger scoops, right? It's just like the Clean Simple Eats. All right. And then the essential amino acids, the only formulation that I found that is clean is the Kion ones. If we cook, bake with protein powders, yes, great question. No, it does degrade them just a little bit, but not significantly. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember where that was, but I will find it. It was in PubMed, and there's actually a few different articles. I'll put that in the post associated with it. So I do with the Clean Simple Eats, we have that coconut bread that's in the group, and it's freaking amazing. And I just tried it with like 20 grams of protein, and it was so good. So yeah.
Really? Did you use vanilla?
The one that I used was the vanilla one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, you can cook with them. It is going to degrade them a little bit, but they're already slightly denatured anyway. So yeah, that was a great question. So Mindy asks, is collagen in coffee okay? And this is in the context of our optimizing protein talk. So I think an implied here is collagen going to disrupt a fast, and or does collagen contribute to muscle protein synthesis? And I think that's a really, really great question. So I pulled up some numbers here and I tried to keep things as equal as possible. So here we have enough beef to equate to 26 grams of total protein and enough collagen to equate to 26 grams of total protein. Um, Now, if we look at the amino acid profile here, leucine in beef, we're hitting that above 2 grams of leucine necessary to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. And then, of course, we have all the other amino acids that contribute to that. If we look at collagen, it's very low in leucine. Right here we have zero point 0.8 grams for this total of 26 grams of protein. Now, depending on which collagen product you're using, sometimes it contains all 9 of the essential amino acids, and sometimes it's lacking tryptophan. So there's another tick against collagen as far as stimulating muscle protein synthesis, but it's a plus if we're thinking in terms of using it during a fast. So to summarize, with collagen and fasting, collagen does not stimulate muscle protein synthesis. It does not stimulate mTOR. It does initiate some digestive effort, so theoretically it would not be the cleanest fast that you could do. And it does interfere with autophagy. But for the purposes of what most people are looking for when it comes to fasting, it is not. It is still allowing you to be in a fat burning state. It still allows you to get into ketosis. So we'd say that collagen is totally fine for fasting and fat burning and ketosis. And so if it's one of those things where collagen is extremely important to get into the diet, and we think it's extremely beneficial to supplement with. And so if collagen in your coffee is the way that you can get collagen in, I think the advantages and the pluses outweigh these minor negatives of initiating a little bit of digestive effort and interfering a little bit with autophagy. Okay, so collagen fasting, totally cool. If you wanted to be really clean with it, you would just have fasting that incorporated like coffee and water, and you'd have the collagen around your main meals.
You're gonna ask me the other
Yeah.
question.
I did want to ask about casein, right? So I don't think you're a huge fan of milk, whatever, but at the end of the day, so milk is like 80% casein and 20% whey.
Mhm.
And, obviously assume whey is derived from milk products, right? So is casein still an effective protein, just a slower digested protein?
Well, it definitely digests slower, but did you see those slides that I pulled up where it showed the comparison of casein compared to whey on muscle protein synthesis? Did you
Yeah.
catch that? You
Just
got
saying
that?
it's not as effective.
Yeah, let me just show you real quick because and I'll show you where I got all this stuff from because it's really, really good stuff. Yeah, I mean for the now in comment now I would also say just intuiting this whole idea around food matrix, right? If you're consuming milk that has the casein, then that probably has a different effect from consuming casein by itself compared to whey, like a very not as significant spike, right? So we're talking
Yeah,
about
so
and
have
these
you
are
ever heard the old
isolates.
have you ever heard the old school bodybuilder wisdom of that? So casein is supposed to be still effective, but then like some people have it at nighttime because it's a slow,
Slow
like a slow
digesting.
plasma,
Yeah.
as opposed to whey is a spike fast, right?
Yep. Yeah. So what Dr. Lehman would say is that what you want is the bolus. That's the most important thing, is to get that 30 grams plus so that you have the activation of the muscle protein synthesis and the leaking out of nutrients. I think it's almost irrelevant, but he definitely does not recommend snacking because in the snacking, you're never getting in. Like, let's say I have a Chomps meat stick, which is fine. Like, if I need something, I'll have a Chomps meat stick. But in that snacking, I'm not getting enough protein to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So in his mind, I would assume too, like with casein, like you may get like a good bolus, but the digestion of it is so prolonged that the response from your body is not going to be the same as something that's fast digesting, like whey.
So would you
Does that make
say if you're
sense?
taking, yeah, I was just saying, if all we had access to, like, let's say again, it's post-apocalyptic and we're just living on your farm, and well, obviously we don't have access to whey isolate anymore at this point.
Right.
Can we not just consume milk now? All the allergies and stuff aside, can you not get that same essential amino acids and all that just from drinking milk?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm intuiting, like we made the argument about the food matrix and the egg is better than egg whites. then I would say that casein isolated may not be a great thing, but milk would probably be an awesome thing.
Yeah. Cheese and all that, right?
Yeah, a lot of bodybuilders were kind of famous for drinking a lot of milk and getting
Yeah.
great results. So I think there's something there, but I could look into it and see if I can find something on it. It's kind of tragic that a lot of the research, but I guess it's really expensive to do it, was really focused on those basic things: casein, whey, soy protein. But there's some other really cool experiments coming down the pipe that those guys were talking about. So,
And then
what
I'll ask that
else?
thing. Can I ask
Oh,
you
go ahead.
so I think definitely just getting the protein and the whey isolate stuff is like it's the minimum effective dose, that 80-20%. Do you think the EAA supplementation is more like that 2 to 5% little extra boost, or do you feel like that's really important? Like it's gonna make the biggest difference if you're already if you're already hitting your protein numbers, getting good sources of protein.
Well, I think if we had to prioritize, it would be your daily protein intake. And if you're
Yeah,
looking to be
we're
cost
already there.
effective, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So if you want to be cost effective, it's the food route, right?
Yeah.
The next level, or maybe a support level, would be the whey protein isolate, either mixed
Yeah.
in with food or as a standalone deal. And then if you can afford it, I think the essential amino acids, because the research on taking those isolated outside of meals is so compelling, because it's like, when I mentioned how you take organs, if you take organs away from food, the body takes those
Mhm.
organs and it goes straight to the organs. Those essential amino acids go to um, different, better purposes than combining them with the meal, because obviously if you're eating meat, you're getting those essential amino acids too. And I can only tell you, maybe just try it, because as soon as I started, I don't know, my performance is always great, and it's better. I feel I don't get sore anymore. Chandler, didn't you say something the other day? You said like almost right away you noticed something.
Yeah,
And Chan,
recovery's gone ballistic now. Like
oh yeah,
I would be sore for 2 days after a workout, and now it's just I haven't felt that since then, and I'm working out at the same intensity. So that
And that's your increase of the amino acids.
yeah, the supplementing with the EAAs,
Were
it's
you before doing like, so for me, I agree, like working, like doing CrossFit 3 to 4 times a week, the recovery and pain now is better when I'm tracking my protein,
mm-hmm.
and the recovery is like way less painful. But now I'm thinking, if it's fine, do I add the amino acids? Is it necessary? Or just continue doing what I'm doing?
well, you guys get protein through real food as well. So
Yeah.
I don't get that. So I definitely was not getting a full amino acid profile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it made such a huge.
Maybe that's why you responded so well. But I did too. I'm telling you, like I still get sore a little bit, and I'm just like, my energy, recovery, like you said, it's almost like I don't even notice anything the next day, and I'm still
Yeah.
improving my strength and stuff. So maybe between the two, y'all try it, and then I can
Okay.
also tell you too, like because Keon has some really good articles and literature supporting just essential amino acids in general. Like when I take it mid morning, I get an energy boost.
I was gonna ask, do you have a certain time of day? So you say like before you eat your first meal, after a workout?
So the experts would say that the most benefit from those essential amino acids comes outside of food. You don't want it compounded with food.
Yeah.
So, and they recommend post workout a small dose, like a 1 serving dose,
Mhm.
and then in between your main meals, right? So ideally, if you could afford it, like I forget who the owner of Keon, one of the owners is Angelo
So
something.
you're not taking in the morning, or you are?
No, I
Before you
do
work out?
after I work out, I'm taking 5 grams, like one
But not
serving.
before.
Not before, no, because of leucine is something that the body can use for energy. So I'm trying to have this fasted workout state, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But anyway, Angelo would say, one of the founders, well, of course he sells it, but I mean, he's like, to keep this muscle protein like bodybuilders, the bros knew it all along, man. They're like, you eat several times, every few hours to keep your muscle building. Well, we know that we're also trying to contribute to metabolic health. So what's the balance there? Essential amino acids don't give you like an insulin spike. They don't initiate digestion. So what he says is, if you can do it, like you'd have like 10 to 15 grams of essential amino acids in between meals. You'd have a big protein bolus at your meal, another 10 to 15 grams in between meals, and then your dinner. And for me, what I found to be, just because there's a cost issue there, I just do a serving after I work out. I do 10 grams with my organs and everything, and then I eat my 2 meals.
Do you think the bodybuilders, I mean, I guess it's that super pro thing, right? Do they do something before bedtime to write out that nitrogen balance overnight?
I don't know.
I mean, you think that
I don't remember.
I just wonder if there's more research there to wonder. I know it's probably a little neurotic, but it's like, you are probably breaking down over nighttime, right?
Well, of course, but I mean, like we talked about before, the turnover, right? They have more turnover, right? And they have more protein synthesis. So I think it's probably washing itself out. And when they reduce their training load because they're not competing anymore, then the amount of food they consume and protein they consume probably goes down too.
Okay, so Chris asks, is animal protein or plant protein better? And this is in the context of our optimizing protein talk. And we're trying to figure out, as we're getting there as far as consuming protein and foods and powders and things like that, like what is the best way to go? I think it's no surprise to y'all that animal foods are always going to be superior to plant foods as far as protein, because there's several different ways that we can look at that. A while back, we did this talk on nutritional vitality where we assess foods based on their nutrient sufficiency and their toxicity levels and how they contribute to metabolic efficiency. Animal foods contain complete bioavailable nutrition. They have all the essential amino acids plus all the other amino acids. They have essential fatty acids. They have very bioavailable minerals and vitamins, fat-soluble nutrients, and they have very minimal toxicity because they resemble so much of what we are as animals. They have some nutrients that are not found in plants. So vitamin B12, vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and there's some nutrients there's very little of them, if any, in plants that we think are just superfoods. Okay, so things like creatine, carnitine, choline, powerhouse, and then taurine and carnosine. And these are all found in high amounts in animal foods. So those are all some pluses for animal foods. Plus, most of us are aware of the fact that in plant foods, we have what is known as anti-nutrients. Okay, so anti-nutrients have different effects depending on the type of anti-nutrient they are. Some phytic acids actually inhibit the absorption of different nutrients and minerals because it's trying to hold on to those nutrients for the growing plant. Now, a way you can mitigate that is, of course, through cooking and sprouting and fermenting, but it's still a tick against plant foods and their bioavailability. Also, we have different versions of nutrients in plants that are not what we're looking for in animal foods. So a lot of times, we hear things like, carrots have a lot of vitamin A. They don't have a lot of vitamin A. They have a lot of beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A, but a lot of humans don't have the ability to convert beta carotene into vitamin A. Whereas when we consume animal foods, we're getting retinol. We're getting the animal version of vitamin A that's very well absorbed by humans. Iron is very different in plants. The non-heme iron is not something that's very absorbable, whereas the heme iron that we find in animal foods is very absorbable. D3 is the animal-based version of vitamin D. Plants contain D2. Plants contain vitamin K1, and there's some benefits of vitamin K1 in the human system, but K2 is the powerhouse that we're looking for, the fat-soluble nutrient that we're looking for, and it's only available in animal foods, or sometimes if you ferment some vegetables, you'll get some K2. All right, so and then when we talk about protein and digestibility, there have been a lot of different ways that digestibility has been measured, but the most accurate and recent one is the digestible indispensable amino acid score. For isolated proteins here, we got a chart of different things. And you'll notice if you take time to look at this chart, you can pause the video and you'll see the majority of the things that are absorbed the best are animal-based, which makes sense because we're talking about humans. We are animals. We do great with direct nutrient to nutrient assimilation. Plants are going to have these anti-nutritional factors that can kind of mess things up a little bit. Okay, so to answer Quisher's question, animal foods are always going to be superior compared to plant foods. Now, some of us, just may not want to consume animal foods. We have some members of our community that are kind of vegetarian and or vegan skewed, which is totally fine. It's a personal decision. So just the things we want to consider when we're consuming foods for nutritional value is the nutrient density of the food, the bioavailability of the nutrients, and the anti-nutrients that could be inhibiting the bioavailability. And that's something we always want to think about. All right, now, if we bring it back to some powders, we don't have any information that I was able to find as far as muscle protein synthesis from pea protein isolate. But we did have this chart earlier where we had whey isolate, and we had soy, and we had casein, where, again, whey is just king. And if you're able to tolerate it, I think whey is the best protein powder to supplement with. But then I also pulled Biotics pea protein isolate powder. And if we look at a serving that would give you 25 grams of protein, which here I think they're saying it's about 3 scoops of it. If we look at the amino acid profile, we are hitting the leucine amount that we need, which is 2 grams plus. Okay, so, and then we also have the other essential amino acids in here. So as a plant-based option, I think that pea protein isolate is a great choice. So the reason that you would do this is because if you don't tolerate whey, if it gives you some kind of digestive discomfort or you have some other reactions to it, or if you're kind of plant-based and you're just doing the plant-based thing, because we have some members that do that, and we've seen great results with the pea protein isolate for those people. But if all things being equal, I would say animal foods whey isolate would be superior. If you're skewing towards the vegan plant-based, then pea protein isolate would be the best choice, in my opinion, because soy protein is going to have anti-nutrients that we're trying to avoid. But this is also another argument for if you're leaning in this direction of vegetarian or vegan, the essential amino acid supplements would be really, really beneficial.